As I record, the chess world has its eyes firmly trained on the candidates tournament taking place in Moscow. It's a very exciting, closely contested affair, as we all thought it would be. Welcome along, everyone. My name's Andrew Martin, and this is the BCM Game of the Month for April 2016. A little bit in advance, but I've highlighted a game this month which came from round 6 of the candidates, which is an extraordinary game for the level at which it is played. It's very rare indeed to have a short game, a kind of miniature between two of the world's strongest players. But that's precisely what occurred here. We're going to pick up on the round 6 game between Vishy Anand, who is performing above expectations in this tournament. I don't know why people were writing him off before the event. Such is his experience. I mean, he keeps himself fully fit. And, it's clear that he was going to be one of the favourites. Yet he was being written off in favour of Caruana, Nakamura, the younger players. But he's showing in this tournament a tremendous run of form, and he's one of the leaders as I speak. And he's playing white against Anand-Svidler, another tremendously experienced player playing with the black pieces. A man who seems to have his repertoire perfectly worked out with black. And so to defeat him in a Ruy Lopez is a tremendous achievement, even for somebody as great as Anand. So we get the Ruy Lopez on the board, and Svidler is confidently rattling out his favourite closed variation. He's played this so many times before, tremendous experience. We wait for the novelty or the new idea. So black feints to play the Marshall Gambit, and white decides not to allow it on this day, preferring A4. I mean, there are other anti-Marshall moves. White plays H3 here. I think Anand's played that quite a few times. There are other moves. A4 is quite a pointed move because it sets up the threat of A takes B5. So black's got to deal with that threat immediately. Now, Svidler has had this position a lot in his practice. And for the most part, he's chosen the move B4 here. So it's probable that Anand focused a lot of his preparation on this move. A recent game, the most recent example I can find, comes from Moscow 2016 between Shigurov and Sashikiran. And there black got quite a reasonable position after D3, D6, H3, Bishop E6. Interesting move that. White took, played Knight BD2, Queen E8, C3, Rook B8, with an active looking game for black. This game was eventually drawn, but B4 is definitely an interesting option for black in this position. I presume Svidler didn't choose it in this game because he just wanted to avoid Anand's proposed preparation. Another move here, apart from Bishop B7, which is what Svidler played, is Rook B8. But that scores pretty well for white. It's a little too compliant for my liking and enables white to open the A file straight away. Even so, you wouldn't think that black has too bad a game here. He cedes the A file, but he can just continue in typical Ruy Lopez fashion, something like this. Does the A file mean very much in this position? Well, Svidler didn't play Rook B8. So instead he played Bishop B7, which again has got a very respectable pedigree. And white played D3. Now comes Rook E8. White brings his knight to D2 and then Bishop F8. The point of this play by black is that he's trying to get the freeing break D5 in one go. So he's delaying D6 for as long as possible. White continues in slow Ruy Lopez style. Black puts his knight on A5. The bishop comes back. No way does white want to allow black to take that bishop. And then C5 comes. So black has dispensed with the move D6 for a jolly good reason. As I say, he wants to get D5 in. And he is expanding on the queen side with C5. If white wants any sort of advantage in this position, he's probably got to play D4, as Anand did. And now we get to a very important position, where Svidler took on D4 with the E-pawn. Now this is a very rare bird. I found one game, which we'll see a bit later, between Alexei Shirov and Onishchuk, which comes from an old game, 2004, in Mallorca, where black played this move. Generally speaking, they take on D4 with the C-pawn here, and then play D5. I wonder why Anand-Svidler didn't do that, because it looks very thematic for the future of black's system. There was a game bruised on Batista versus Kaidanov, Mar del Plata 2012, where the game continued. D takes e5, knight takes e4, queen e2, and now black played rook c8. White was able to take the pawn on e4 several times, but now came rook c4. And after queen f5, queen c8, with very active play for black. After takes, rook takes, bishop e3, and then knight b3. Well, such is the level of the preparation, you know, at the highest level of world chess, that it may be that Svidler was trying to outguess Anand's preparation here, so he decided to come up with something slightly unusual. It's interesting to note that in the game that I mentioned earlier, this game between Shirov and Onishchuk, black actually won. So let's continue. White recaptured, and now d5. A very sharp move, but again, as I say, very thematic for this setup. This move does have the merit, from White's perspective, of bringing his Lopez bishops into the game. They're already pointing at the black king, and as we'll see, this is one of the deciding factors a little bit later on. I mean, clearly black can, let's say, take on d4 in this position, allow white to play e5 and then play knight d5. But as I say, I think Svidler was playing very concretely here, very sharply. He was quite happy to take Anand on in a sharp struggle, and so he pushes forward. White plays e5, and now in comes the knight, trying to block white out. A takes b5. The first new move of the game, and an important one, as clearly white can take on e4 without opening the A file. I think opening the A file gives white an extra trump. So that's why Anand played that move. Now let's just see what happens when white takes on e4, because this is clearly critical. Now white can take two ways. He can take with the bishop, black takes, and now the point of the whole play by black, queen d5. And black has a pretty nice game here. He's very active. White's extra pawn, he'll never be able to keep it. For instance, if white plays queen e2 here, black's already better after knight b3. And just going back, if white plays rook e3, then I think we just go knight c6 with great pressure on white's position. Black's just better developed here. So what we should get in this variation is rook takes e4, which is going to lead us into a similar situation to the game. And then knight b3 looks good for black. And this brings us to the game Shirov versus Onishchuk, where Shirov struck out with bishop g5. But let's see this game, because it is interesting. Black played bishop e7. White took on e7, black recaptured with the queen. Clearly the knight on b3 isn't really hanging, because the rook on e4 hangs. Rook b1, and now knight takes d4 by Onishchuk. Again, you have to say that black is better developed in this position, and that enables him to play what is in effect the winning move here, rook a d8. Bishop takes h7, king f8, queen f3, rook takes d4. Black is basically winning this position. Rook e1, queen g5, h4, queen d2, rook f1, rook takes h4, and that was the end of Shirov Onishchuk. A very nice win for black. So maybe in the back of Vishy's mind, going back to the position after knight e4, he may have been recalling this game, or something like it, some vague memory of it. And that's why he decided to innovate with a takes b5. Black recaptured, white took on e4, black takes, and now rook takes e4 yet again. The same sort of thing we looked at earlier, but in improved circumstances for white. And we'll see why in a moment. So like Onishchuk before him, black put his knight in on b3. And the thing is that if he takes the rook on e4, bishop takes, not only is white threatening bishop takes h7 check, he's threatening the rook. The rook's going to a7. This position of the black pieces on the a file is a little bit shaky. So this gives white a kind of extra trump in the position. Well, he does actually need it here, because he can land the Greek gift sacrifice with bishop takes h7. And I think this is just basically winning. If the king ventures out, clearly a move like queen g4. If he goes back, in comes the queen, and this should be very easy for somebody of Anand's calibre, because the black position is a little bit disjointed. So going back, as I say, maybe Svidler was recalling this game Shirov versus Anischuk. It was all part of his preparation beforehand, I don't know. And he plays knight b3 in a similar vein to what black did there. Anand took on a8. Black confidently recaptured with the bishop. And now the fun starts with knight to g5. And, well, obviously now white is building up to a very big punch indeed on the king side. Black is very tender on the f7 and h7 squares, and white's already threatening a move like queen h5, which is all very brutal for a game at this level. You think the players were so good they could easily sidestep any sort of crude attacking ideas, but not so in this game. I think Svidler just simply underestimated white's attack. So black took on c1, apparently quite quickly, and now Anand played the threat, queen to h5, and apparently Svidler was bashing out the moves. He played h6 quickly. Well, I think we can demonstrate that h6 loses, so was there anything else? The only thing that I can see here is a move like queen takes g5, and then try to bail out after bishop takes e4, and hope that black can hold the position. I think queen takes c1 is the most accurate move here, and then we get a kind of endgame where actually this should be technically winning for white. Black has a rook and a bishop only for the queen. White can reinforce his pawn by going f4, blockade the pawn with queen d3, and then bring his king up. I think it should be possible to make gradual progress for white in this position. For instance, something like this. Queen comes in, and now there are some threats. The queen can show her strength in a position like this, and black shouldn't be able to hold everything together. So, going back to the game, queen h5, h6. I mean, I think we can all understand what's going on now. The queen piles in. The king goes to h8. And now a very strong move indeed. Rook to g4. I mean, I don't think Svidler missed this move, but it would be an easy move for lesser mortals to miss. Just getting out of the way of the bishop on a8, unleashing the bishop on c2, and just threatening queen g6, which is a crusher. Queen a5. Black plays his last trick. Just dropping back. If black gives a check, I think white has to play king f1. Incredibly, if he plays king h1 in this position, now queen a5 actually wins for black. As with queen e1, a big threat, white has to play h4. In comes the queen. The king is forced up the board, and now, amazingly, it's white who gets checkmated. But as I say, king f1 just makes this variation redundant. So queen a5 was met by h4, freeing up the king on the back rank, and Svidler resigned this position. And quite justifiably so. I mean, I don't think there is any move. White has too many threats. He's threatening queen g6. He's threatening the rook. If black gives the check and tries to mate as before, just knight to h3. Covers all threats and leaves black defenceless to the coming mating attack. So a sudden and rather unexpected finish to this very short game. Unexpected in the sense that you wouldn't be expecting Peter Svidler to lose so quickly in one of his favourite variations. But what a game by Vishy Anand, and you know, a very unusual game in the context of the candidates tournament. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this this miniature among the top players in the world, and that you continue to enjoy BCM and the YouTube channel that we provide.